Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Prophecy Update. It's our desire to bring the events that are happening in the world from a biblical perspective and also a prophetic perspective. So thanks for joining us today. What we want to look at and examine this week is how people are being re-engineered to think differently. That's what's going on in our world, and the global elites, the Babylonians, whatever you want to call them, are doing a very, very good job of reprogramming people or re-engineering people to act and believe and think in different ways, contrary to the Bible, contrary to biblical values, morals, and just simply the way to think correctly. People don't think correctly anymore. That's what happens when you follow Satan. This is what happens when you don't worship the Creator and worship the creation. Your mind goes dark, your heart goes dark, your mind gets depraved. You're given over to a depraved mind. And so now we are watching people have their brains, have their minds re-engineered. They don't think straight anymore. There's no common sense. There's no logic anymore. It's all irrational, how I feel and what I think I want, and continuing to keep a false narrative of how they think life is and how it should be. And this is because people are re-engineering them. Obviously, Satan's behind the whole thing, but you have the global elites and you have the politicians, you have the media, they have Hollywood, you have schools indoctrinating kids, you have colleges and universities. All this that's happening in our world is re-engineering people to basically be slaves. Slaves to the system, but ultimately slaves to Satan. Now, we know that from a spiritual level what's happening. We know it's leading into the end times. We know that they're creating a slave mass of humanity to be a slave to the Antichrist and to be enslaved into the false Babylonian system of religion, politics, and economics. And this is what's happening. So we want to talk a little bit about that today. I will say this at the outset. Some of the stuff that I'm going to say on this program will not be featured on YouTube. I'm going to edit that out. It's the full version of what I do today will be on Vimeo and will be on Rumble, either one that you have. So if you want the full video of this, go to Vimeo and Rumble. Make sure you have the links there and you get your account set up there. And that way you can follow us on there because that's where all the full shows will go. Okay? So let's start out with understanding how they're re-engineering people. The first thing is you have to introduce a false religion. And we've talked about this before. I'm just going to briefly touch on these subjects. But the false religion is a Babylonian religion. It's a system of lawlessness, 180ism, what we've talked about. And it's being ushered in by the people of this world, and wokeism and critical race theory. And the main person pushing a lot of this is not just the global elites, but it's the Pope. And we've talked several times about the Pope and how crazy he is and how he's the best running candidate right now for the false prophet. Not saying he is, but he is the best candidate on the face of the planet at this point in time. Anyway, a new thing about introducing these false religions into our society and people accepting it is what Pope Francis just did recently. WorldNet Daily carried the story. And basically, this is how depraved this individual is. He recently hung an image behind his desk depicting a naked Jesus after the resurrection caressing Judas Iscariot. And it's the picture is out of bounds. It's blasphemous, right? And you know, it pictures a naked Jesus ministering to Judas Iscariot. Wait a second. Judas Iscariot was a son of perdition. Jesus said he was going to hell. He never was a believer. So we have scriptures about that. So Jesus never came after this resurrection and caressed and held Judas Iscariot and forgave him. But see, that's what Pope Francis and a lot of these other crazy religious leaders want you to believe. They want you to believe that Judas was forgiven, that he was just mistaken, didn't know what he was doing. No, Judas betrayed the Son of Man. Jesus himself said that Judas is going to perdition, that Judas was going to hell. Not because of what he did, because Judas didn't believe. The evidence that Judas didn't believe is that he betrayed the Son of Man, right? But the fact is, Judas didn't believe. Therefore, if you don't believe, you're going to hell. But see, in the Pope system, in the Vatican system, you don't go to hell because of disbelief. You go to hell based on bad works and good works and whatnot. It's a false system of religion, right? But there's really thing catching wave here, in at least with the Pope and a lot of the higher-ups in the Vatican, that, Judas was forgiven, and he's a good guy, and maybe we should make him a saint. I mean, it's just stupid things like that. And Judas was a traitor, right? But so we don't praise traitors. He betrayed the Son of Man for 30 pieces of silver. And again, they're trying to remake him into a good figure, and he wasn't. He was not. He went to hell, according to Jesus. I didn't say that, he did. But here's what's happening in the Vatican. They're becoming the church of Judas. That's what the Vatican is. That's what Pope Francis is. It is the church of Judas. And if you're a Catholic out there listening to us, or if you're ministering to Catholics, you've got to understand, the head of your church is about the most corrupt person on this planet, and is a good candidate for the false prophet, and is turning this religion of Babylonian religion into the church of Judas. We don't praise Judas. We don't celebrate Judas. We don't make him a saint. We don't put a picture of him being forgiven, caressed by a naked Jesus behind our desk like the Pope did. If this doesn't wake you up, I don't know what does. There's no defense for what Judas did. But yet the Pope wants to defend this guy. And several other Vatican higher-ups. No, he was filled by Satan, by the way. He was possessed by Satan. And so what's happening? Is this the church of Judas? Is this the church of Satan? I think it is. It is the most blasphemous, ungodly images in this painting that you could possibly imagine. It can never be endorsed, except by someone who speaks like a dragon, who maybe perhaps is from the dragon, which is the Pope. I think this guy's pure evil, guys. But anyway, what's the point? The re-engineering of the narrative, of people's thoughts. We go from Judas being the worst traitor in all of history to now recognized as a saint and being forgiven by the Messiah, a naked Messiah. See, that's a re-engineering of religious thought. It's crazy. That's the Babylonian system, right? There's no atonement in the Babylonian system. There's no penalty for sin in the Babylonian system. There is no sacrificing for sin. It's just you come out and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and everyone forgives you. But according to the Bible, there has to be a sacrifice. There has to be atonement made. There has to be propitiation. There has to be a satisfaction of justice. But see, in the Babylonian system, there is no justice in that system. You just get to do whatever you want and say, oops, sorry, and everyone's good. And you all get to go to heaven, that kind of mentality. Really? That's false. But see, this is perpetrated on people. This is how it's perpetrated in society. That there is no vindication, there is no justice. People can do outright crimes, and because of their skin color or because of they were righting a wrong or practicing vigilante justice against the critical race, systemic racism system, then they're okay. So you can loot, riot, burn buildings, kill people, nothing happens to you. If you're the Palestinians, you can go into a pizza parlor and blow up Jews, and it's okay, right? I mean, think about this, how bad the religious system of Babylon is. The religious system of Babylon is seen in this example of the UN giving Iran a seat to protect women's rights. I mean, really? Iran? That's who they pick to be the champion of women's rights. And look it up yourself. That's what the UN did. This is how crazy they are, right? And demonize the United States and Israel, and that's par for the course. But that's how crazy this religion is. And, you watch this Pope, and whether he believes in, global warming, he believes in, gay marriage, homosexuals are not going to be condemned. Atheists are children of God; they're not condemned. And so he even denies, the Vatican's teaching. And I want to say, where are all the Catholics in an uproar saying, "Hey, dude, we got to throw this guy out, or we got to leave"? But then again, if you're a Catholic or if you're ministering to a Catholic, you got to tell them the Catholic Church is a Babylonian system. It's a system of works. They say they believe in Jesus, but it's Jesus plus works. And so we got to be really clear on our gospel presentation. It is by faith alone, in Christ alone. That's it. Anyway, let's continue on how the re-engineering of people is happening. Well, obviously, which is par for the course, is they always tell people that Israel's bad. That's what they do. They're always anti-Semitic. The Babylonian system's always anti-Semitic. Satan is anti-Semitic. Evil is anti-Semitic. Wickedness is always anti-Semitic. So whether you're dealing with, AOC, or you're dealing with other, Pocahontas up there who condemned Israel and said we need to stop funding them, or Elizabeth Warren, if you don't know who Pocahontas is, fake Pocahontas. But you'll see on the side of wickedness and evil, they always take a stand against Israel. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and the list keeps going on. Bernie Sanders. The list keeps going on and on of who hate Israel, right? And they go against Netanyahu, which is really like going against Donald Trump. And you get, the flavor. Satan hates Israel. Okay, he wants to eliminate Israel. And so his followers do the same. And so check this out. In a recent article that came out, and it's all over the news, the Iranian foreign minister Mohammad Javad Zarif revealed in a leaked recording obtained by, guess what, the New York Times of all places, that former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, hear that name well, John Kerry, allegedly informed Iran that Israel had carried out at least 200 covert ops of airstrikes against Iranian targets in Syria. Kerry, who continued to meet with this Zarif even after leaving office when he was not Secretary of State. So Zarif claims that Kerry even warned him personally of airstrikes. Folks, if this is true, and I probably believe it is, and it'll come out, again, it's going to be buried by the media. This is the most egregious betrayal of an ally like Israel in U.S. history. That has never happened before. This guy won't go to jail. But again, what does it show you? It shows you that people are being re-engineered to hate Israel, to do things against her. And so here's John Kerry. He already tells you he's on what side, right? By just his hatred of Israel by doing this. And America as well. So let me show you a fourth way they're re-engineering people. It's by censoring. It's by eliminating the rights of other people, especially those who disagree with their narrative. See, you cannot be free to disagree in our society anymore. You can't have your own opinion. You can't think differently because the thought police are going to come down and censor you. Like I've told you before, YouTube has deplatformed us, and so now we have to meet on Rumble and Vimeo. So this is part of the re-engineering so that you and I will self-edit, that you and I will keep our mouths shut and not say anything. So this includes the expunging of a sitting president. So Twitter shuts him off, Facebook shuts him off, all the social media shuts him off. A sitting president they did this to. But not just him, but everyone else. Christians, conservatives, everyone that disagrees with the leftist Babylonian mindset was expunged. And then he started getting rid of old books that were classics in American literature from our culture, saying they were racist and insensitive. So there goes Dr. Seuss. He goes out. So basically they had a book burning fest without burning the books. Massive censorship everywhere. Self-censorship. And they're saying, well, we're just trying to prevent hate. No, you're trying to silence opposition. You're trying to silence good arguments and logic. See, the reason they have to censor us and cut us down and cut us off is because they don't have an argument. We have the argument. We have the facts, the logic, the rationale, the truth. And the problem is when a lie confronts the truth, it can't do anything. It can't stand on its own against the truth. So what does a lie have to do? It has to shut down the truth. It has to silence the truth. And so the claim that we're saying hate speech is because they don't have an argument. But that kind of mentality is shaping our people's minds, re-engineering them to think differently, their attitudes, and obviously creating a narrative that's not in reality. And if you create a narrative that's not in reality through censorship, that the truth is not getting out, and you create a falsehood, you're putting people into a false reality, and then they go insane. We want to be reality-based. The Bible is reality-based, truth-based. But the more and more they're putting people into this narrative that's not based on truth, the more and more people are going crazy. They don't think straight. Again, we'll talk more about how people are going crazy, but that's how you re-engineer people, put them out of reality. And then to further escalate problems now with censoring and shutting people down, you're going to be given an ESG score. The big businesses and the banks have these ESG scores, and ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. You think, what does that mean? How's it going to come to me? Well, based on your social score, your social credit score, like you're in China, based on how you view the environment, if you're a radical environmentalist or you're not, whether you're a social justice warrior or not, and whether your governance, your business, whatever, has a multiplicity of affirmative action people on your board, on your staff, in your company, then you're going to be either praised or dinged. So if you're a radical environmentalist and you're a social justice warrior who believes the system is systemically racist, and if your governance has, I got two Deuteronomy 22:5s, I got 2 unnatural affections on my board, I got 2 of this, I got 2 of that, then you have a good score. But boy, howdy, if it's all a bunch of white old men, your score is really bad. You're just systemically racist, and we're not going to do business with you. You're not going to be able to get loans. You're not going to be able to get a mortgage. You're not going to be able to buy a car. You're not going to be able to buy anything because your ESG score is not good. See, this is what they're doing in China with their social credit score. You can't can't fly a plane or get on a plane. Can't ride a bus. Can't go send your kids to private school. Can't do certain things. Buy private property or whatever. That's what China does. It's here now, and it's called an ESG score. Environmental, social, and governance. That's coming to our doorstep. But this is how you brainwash people. This is how you get them to get on the right train. And so with that being said, corporate America and pretty much a lot of these big companies are all woke. They're all woke. And what do I mean by woke? It means that they're practicing cultural Marxism. They're practicing critical race theory. And that they're woke means they're aware of the social injustice of our world, right? That's the social justice warrior. That's what it means to be woke. Well, all these companies are whether it's Coke or whether it's Major League Baseball or the NBA with LeBron James shooting off his mouth constantly. They're all woke. Nike's woke, right? Even though they put out satanic shoes that they claim, oh, we didn't do that. Yeah, you did. You did. Because the guy you worked with said you did. And why would he have to lie? And so Nike got the pushback because they were too woke by selling 666 shoes. We talked about that before. But anyway, now corporate America is pushing woke. And so they're not going to just pitch their products to you. They're going to pitch their products in the form of wokeism. So now shampoo makers like Pantene, run woke commercials. You're like, this is about shampoo. Why is this about racism or something like that? Or they'll show like lesbian parents helping a biological boy become a girl in a shampoo commercial. Or how about Dove celebrating the women's different body types? So instead of one shape of Dove soap. It's going to have a multiplicity of shapes so that people don't feel left out, I guess. I don't know. Whether that's Dove soap or Vaseline, I mean, it's Oreo cookies. It's Burger King saving the environment because they're not going to be meat producers because they're afraid of bovine flatulence, creating a global warming pandemic because of bovine flatulence. Yeah, I'm serious, man. This is what they say. So Burger King's pushing their no meat burger. And I'm telling you what, the other thing they're pushing in this wokeism is not eating meat. They have suggested that, and I think eventually it's going to get put into law because the Bible talks about this, that they say you're going to be down to like a hamburger a month or something like that you can eat. And that's about the most meat consumption you can have. That's where they want to go to. And so, funny that the Apostle Paul warned Timothy that in the latter days, they would forbid the eating of meat. And the churches would. So the churches are going to get on board on this, by the way. But anyway, that's what you're going to start seeing. And look, hey, if you don't play ball, if you're not an ESG score higher up there on your ESG score, and if you're not a part of this woke narrative, then we really don't want to do business with you. We really don't want to make business loans to you. We really don't want you to buy a car. We also don't want you to buy ammo or guns. We don't want you to do anything because we're going to marginalize you. And that's how it's going. And you have to understand, do the elite really believe in this wokeism? No, they don't. But they're using it to re-engineer us. See, the elite ruling class, the Babylonians, the ones that are higher up, that are being controlled by Satan, they believe they know better. They believe their father of lies, that they worship and follow him and practice his ways, think they're smarter than God. They think they're smarter than the Bible. They think they're smarter than Christians. And so therefore, they say, we'll tell you what to do. We know better. You're nothing but poor, stupid American people, or poor, stupid Australians, poor, stupid Europeans, poor, stupid, wherever you live. They think that we're all stupid. But the Bible declares them to be stupid. The Bible declares them to be fools because they're following Satan and they practice his ways. But nonetheless, that's why they're doing this, because they're going to tell us how to think. And I mean, even down to Major League Baseball, moving the All-Star game from Atlanta to punish Georgia. For what? To have election integrity? That's why they punished Georgia? I mean, come on. And then now after that, 120 CEOs and business leaders had a conference call discussing punishing other states for, biblical values or whatever, or just rational, logical thought. And so companies now have begun training their employees, or begun training their employees, and that call for inclusion and diversity. When you hear the word inclusion and diversity, do you know what that means? It means Babylonian system. And the funny thing about these corporations, there's an old phrase that's popped up now that says, go woke and go broke. Because if you go woke, you're going to lose people. I mean, look at the NBA. No one watches them anymore. Look at Major League Baseball. No one watches them. Who wants to watch them? Look at the NFL. Who wants to watch the NFL anymore? I'm done watching sports now. I can't take it anymore. You turn on ESPN, you think you're going to watch sports, and all you do is you hear these knuckleheads on ESPN not talk about sports, but talk about LeBron James and his recent stupid things that come out of his mouth. That's all you hear from these people. I can't even watch sports anymore. I'm done. I don't want to hear athletes tell me their leftist political opinions. I'm done. I'm tired of them taking knees and dishonoring the military. I'm tired of them flying rainbow flags. I'm tired of them flying BLM flags. I'm tired of Drew Brees wearing a criminal name on the back of his helmet. I'm tired of that. I'm so sick and tired of watching it. So I'm sure you're like me. I've given up on sports. I'm done. I used to watch sports in the day. I can't do it anymore. I can't embrace this Babylonian mindset that all these players do. And whether these players believe it or not, they do it because of their money. That's why. So I'm done with that. But you'd think that, does the NBA care that they're going broke? I mean, I heard recently that when the old days, when Michael Jordan used to play, you had like 40 million people watching the NBA playoffs. And now today, the NBA playoffs, I think it went down to like 9 million. I mean, think about that. You go from 40 million with Michael Jordan to now with a LeBron James to 9 million. Hey, NBA, do you care? No, they don't, because the phrase is go woke, go broke. They don't care if they go broke because they think they're at the end, they're going to come out a winner in all of this because corporate fascism will sustain them. That's why they're doing it. That's why Coca-Cola's doing it. That's why Nike is, because they believe that the governments will sustain them, and they've worked the deal out. It's called corporate fascism. The other way you brainwash people or re-engineer people is you control the technology monopolies, and you control the narrative through these technological monopolies. So big tech basically creates fake narratives. They propagandize people. If you just censor out everything, then they only hear half the story or the false story. That's what happened this last year in United States. We were all told stuff. That's what the world was told, a false narrative. Now, before I go on, and I'm going to tell you about this false narrative, more of it, I'm going to edit this part out. So you're going to have to go to Vimeo and Rumble to hear this part that I'm going to say. And so if you'll join me on that, make sure you get on your Vimeo and Rumble. You'll hear what I'm about to say. So a few more things about how to re-engineer people's minds. You indoctrinate at a young age. So this is happening in our public school systems. If you're in California, then you know what's happening in our public school systems. They're the biggest leftist propaganda brainwashing is happening right now. And the teachers are full on board on this stuff. And like I've told you before, the most dangerous people for our children are public school teachers, college professors, and college professors at universities, even up to the PhD programs. They are public enemy number one for your children in terms of indoctrination. Of course, there are always good teachers. There is always Christian teachers that are being salt and light, of course, but the system itself is indoctrinating. The teachers' unions, the NEA, all of it is doing this. Your kid might be able to escape 1 year because they have a good teacher or a couple classes here and there, but eventually it's going to get to them. In California, they're putting the indoctrination through English and history. So the history teachers and the English teachers are now going to teach wokeism. They're going to teach all this other stuff, Deuteronomy 22:5, unnatural affections, and things of that nature. They're all going to teach this through those two subject areas. How are you going to go through high school without taking history? How are you going to go through high school without taking English? You see what I'm saying? You're not going to avoid it. And they're doing this junk in math too. You can't escape it. But this is what they're doing. And the teachers that are running the show, the principals, the superintendents, all these other people are just as woke as these Babylonians. Folks, I think it's time now where you have a serious conversation with you and your spouse, or your adult children, and about your grandchildren or your own children, and say, hey, look, I think it's time to pull our kids out of the public school systems. If you want your kid to be indoctrinated, go right ahead. But you're not going to escape this. It's coming. Best thing you do is find an alternative way to educate your kids, whether it's homeschool, private school, some type of hybrid, whatever you come up with. But just flat out send them to public school and you have your hands off the wheel. Get ready that when they cross the graduation line, they get their diploma, you will have a full functioning Marxist who's woke and who hates you and I, who hates the Bible, and who hates anything about Christianity and Judaism. That's what they're producing. That's what they're producing. The other thing they're getting people to believe in, to re-engineer their thought, is the destruction of national sovereignty. If you're going to have globalism, you got to destroy national sovereignty of any nation. So this is why they want to open borders to mass illegal immigration. This is why Europe had a problem with massive immigration coming up from Africa into Europe with the heavy population of Islam and Muslims coming in and taking over, to the point that you got places in France and different parts of Europe where you have enclaves where the cops won't even go in, and because they're running Sharia law there or something like that. They've just completely been taken over in some of these areas. And so they're wanting to do that. They want to change the demographics, obviously, of America for voting right purposes, but also they got to get rid of the borders because they got to end national sovereignty. And basically, that's what's happening in the United States. And the idea of citizenship is going to be replaced by residency. So Dr. Alex Joffe mentioned this in an article called The Europeanized USA. And that's where he said they're going to replace citizenship with residency. That's the global idea. And so they're doing this in every country. That's why they hate Brexit. This is why they hate America having its borders. And so if you claim the Bible says you got to have language, culture, borders, they're going to claim that's racist to shut you down. Furthermore, what they're doing to people is creating a dependency on the government to tell them what to do. Basically, the government becomes a god for them. Financial help, health issues, the government will come to our rescue and tell us what to do. That's what they did in the pandemic, and everyone just waited on what the government was telling them to do. Like the churches. The churches took their cue from the government and their governors and these stupid mayors and politicians telling them what to do rather than God. Shame on them. Shame on them for that. They need to repent of what they did. But what ended up happening is what they're creating, and people don't know this, is they're re-engineering people's minds. Instead of being fiercely independent and get it done yourself and be responsible for yourself, they're creating dependency. I'm a victim. I can't do anything. Please help me, government. Please help me, Gavin Newsom. And they will run to your rescue, and you will become like a child in a nanny state. This is what they're going to do with a living wage. This is why they're going to go to a digital currency. They're going to make people dependent upon them for their lives. So, that's another way of re-engineering. Another thing that's happening is they have to get people to accept the ruling elites. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, the ruling elites are not people that you voted for. They're not people that ran as a politician to win the governorship, win a congressman or senator, or run for president. Okay, they are the ones who actually control those types of individuals, right? But they still want you to accept them. But they stay in the shadows. They don't really want to be seen, and they don't want people to know that they're the major backings behind a lot of this stuff. So what's happening is, people are made to accept China. They're made to accept George Soros. They're made to accept these billionaire tech guys like Bezos and Zuckerberg and who's the other guy? Bill Gates. The society is made to accept these guys. I mean, how many district attorneys have been funded by George Soros? How many? I mean, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all funded by George Soros money, right? Illegal immigration, all funded by George Soros money. See, on the left side, the Babylonian side, they think George Soros and Bill Gates, and even though his wife wears an upside-down cross symbolizing Satanism, they think these guys are good guys. They think Mark Zuckerberg is a good guy, and Jeff Bezos, and all these other billionaires and bankers who rule the world, they think they're the good guys. They want you and I to accept this Babylonian oligarchy. It is an oligarchy. They are who is controlling Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are who is controlling the politicians around the world. The politicians don't have any power. They're just doing what they're told to do. And so they want you to accept big tech, big government, big business. I mean, basically what's happening, you have to understand what the Bible is predicting is a form of what's called corporate global fascism. That's what the Bible is predicting when it talks about Babylon in Revelation 17, 18, Jeremiah 50, 51, Isaiah 13 and 14. That's what Babylon is. It's a giant global corporate fascism. The kings of the earth are doing business with the financiers, the businessmen, the merchants of the world, and pushing the glue together through the whore of Babylon, the religion. That's how it's working. That's what they're doing. So this is what we're starting to have is a technocratic, left-wing, or Babylonian oligarchy. That's what's happening, okay? So again, Larry Page, Jack Dorsey, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, George Soros, the Bilderbergs, all that, right? What's the point? What's the application? It's a lot going on, right? The re-engineering of people's minds. Well, as believers, we have to renew our minds in the scriptures, right? According to Romans chapter 12, we renew our minds. We have to stay in the scriptures and make sure we think straight. Otherwise, if you don't read the scriptures correctly, if you don't understand them, if you don't spend time in them, you will be taken away like a lot of other Christians are. Look how easy it was to convince the churches to say shut down. That's because pastors didn't know the scriptures. What do you mean? They didn't understand Romans 13. They don't have any idea how to apply Romans 13. If they would study the Apostle Paul in the book of Acts, they would know that Paul always punted to the higher authority, whether that be God or Caesar or Roman law. So when one of the officials in the areas he was in was violating either Roman law or God's law, he would punt to the higher law and saying, you're out of compliance. It's just like what we did. You're out of compliance, Gavin Newsom. You cannot tell us what to do because the Constitution of the United States says that we have the free exercise of religion, and God himself says we are to not forsake the gathering of ourselves. Therefore, based on those two authorities, I still met. And now look what the Supreme Court did to Gavin Newsom. They gave him a tongue lashing for some of the draconian restrictions he had on churches. But nonetheless, my point is, look how easy it was to convince Christians who don't know the scriptures to shut their churches down. And that was pastors. Pastors who don't know how to apply Romans 13. How hard is it to read Romans 13 and realize he's talking about what jurisdiction you're under? Gavin Newsom has no jurisdiction if he contradicts the higher jurisdiction, which was the Constitution. How do they not know that? Well, they said, we're just trying to be loving our neighbor. Really? So did you look at the stats? Did you look at the evidence and the facts that came out after we figured out what was going on? And we realized that this was a super cold that, just like any super cold does, it kills elderly, it kills those with comorbidities and things of that nature. How is it that you didn't look at those facts and evidence and say, they're lying to us? How is it? Were you just too lazy to look and do the research? Because I think that was one of the problems. And quite frankly, I think a lot of pastors wanted to take a vacation. That's what I think it happened. And a lot of you have reported back to us what you saw demonstrated in your own churches. And one is left to that conclusion. There's no other conclusion you could reach. You didn't know your facts or you're lazy. And you just flat out disobeyed the Lord. Okay. I hope you repent of that. I hope you've asked for forgiveness. 1 John 1:9 is your passage. But nonetheless, we are to renew our minds so that we don't get a warped mind and go along with this nonsense. So how do you protect yourself? Get in the scriptures. Know what the scriptures say. Know what Romans 13 says. Know those things like the back of your hand. And if you do, you cannot be pushed around. You cannot be swayed. You will not be like a wave tossed to and fro by the wind. You will be on the solid rock, and no one will be able to move you. Second thing, we're all watchers on the wall, and we have to warn people. And if you read Ezekiel 33, 1 through 6, God says, hey, look, it's your job to warn people. If you don't warn people for what's coming, I'm going to hold their blood to your account. So you're responsible for not warning them for what happened to them. But if you do warn them, and you're obedient in your warning, even if they don't listen, it doesn't matter. I won't hold you responsible. You did your job, and that's all you needed to do. Whether they listen to you or not is not your job. Your job is to warn. So that's what we're called to do. Protect ourselves from being re-engineered ourselves, and two, Warn people about this. Warn others what they're doing. Tell them what's happening. So say something before it's too late. What do you mean? Well, I like what John Leffler said. I heard him on a program, on an interview, and he said, speak out now and be willing to bear the consequences. Or don't speak and maybe try to speak a little later but be shut down later on, but you're still going to suffer the consequences. So say something now before you're shut down, basically, is the idea. Because either way, if you decide to do it now or to do it later, you're going to get the consequences no matter what. But later on, you may not get the opportunity to say something. See, just like I'll give you an example. We got shut down off of YouTube. Well, we understood that day was coming, and we got other plans, obviously, on Vimeo and Rumble and other ways to do videos on YouTube. But we know the day is coming where we're totally going to be silenced at some point in time. And when that day comes, we'll be able to say, look, I said what I needed to say. And if I'm shut down and I have no voice anymore, then I did what I was supposed to do before it was too late. And ultimately, before it's too late, it could be a reference to the rapture, obviously. We got to tell people what's happening so they can get saved and be raptured out of this, because the worst time in history is coming. So it's our job to tell them that. Get as many people on that rescue boat as possible. So folks, just a couple things before we go. Again, make sure you have our Vimeo and Rumble address over there. Make sure you have accounts over there. Also, follow this link if you want to get text alerts about things that change, different platforms, what we're doing here and there. Follow this link, fill out your name, and put in your cell phone so we can text alert you when things happen. And then also, we're going to start a new thing on Wednesday nights. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to join us, we're going to do a live Q&A forum talking about current events and things of that nature on Wednesday nights at 6. We'll go from 6 to 7. And you can watch, you can type questions in. We'll have someone filtering the questions. It's going to be through YouTube right now, our YouTube channel. And so if you want to watch that on Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you could join us and be part of that virtual church out there. And then lastly, we need prayer support. We need financial support. Again, we're a small church trying to make our way. We're not in a mega church. We're trying to build a building in the future, about a year and a half away from that probably. We're renting out a facility right now that we're meeting in. And so we could use all the financial help we can get. Like I said, we're not in a mega church. We're a small church, and we're trying to do this for the sake of the remnant, for the sake of the lost, to get the truth out. So if you could help us in this endeavor, it would be greatly appreciated. You can give to our general offering, or you can give to our building, whatever the Lord puts on your heart, if He puts it on your heart. Again, no pressure, but it just, if the Lord prompts you to help us, that's great, because we want to keep this ministry going and alive. Anyway, you can go to our website, rockharborchurch.net, click on the giving tab, and you can give online, which is probably the easiest. Or you can mail in a check, money order, to Rock Harbor Church, P.O. Box 10868, Bakersfield, California, 93389. And remember what the Lord said, when you see these things begin to happen, the reengineering of people's minds to be more Babylonian. Look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. God bless you. We'll see you next time.